Hello and welcome to RS Agarwal's IAS. In this video of the Daily News Express, let us discuss the important topics appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 26 December 2020. Let us start. This is the list of topics that we'll be discussing today. First, we'll talk about the debate with regards to Article 356 and the recent judgment of the Andhra Pradesh High Court. Then we'll discuss a few aspects with regard to the recent happenings in the iPhone assembly factory near Karnataka and its relations to the labor codes and what can be bettered. Then we'll talk about the PM Kisan Scheme. We'll learn about some facts with regards to Chandrayaan II. We'll learn and understand what is OPEC Plus, and then we'll end the discussion by learning about some prelims facts. Going further, this is with regards to Article 356, which talks about President's Rule or State Emergency, and this caters to GS Paper 2 as well as your prelims examination. Now, the Andhra Pradesh High Court judgment comes into picture, and it holds a lot of importance because of the thing that it has conveyed. Now, this judgment is with regards to Article 356 enshrined in the Indian Constitution, which of course talks about President's Rule. Now, the author in this article is saying that this is an example of judiciary which is an activist judiciary. And the author is saying that judicial activism is good, but not activist judiciary. So the difference is that judicial activism is where judiciary takes its own steps with regards to what is wrong, but then activist judiciary is when it takes it upon itself to go and correct the societal wrongs which it feels is wrong according to its own judgments. Now, what is this judgment of the Andhra Pradesh High Court? Let me read out what the judgment is telling here. The recent Andhra Pradesh High Court directing the Andhra Pradesh government. So this High Court has directed the Andhra Pradesh government to come prepared to argue on the breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state. Let me repeat. The Andhra Pradesh High Court has directed the Andhra Pradesh government to come prepared to argue on the breakdown of the constitutional machinery in the state. It is shocking as it opens up possibility of use or misuse of Article 356. Now, what is the meaning of Article 356 becomes very important. What Article 356 says is very important. So let us learn a little bit about President's Rule or State Emergency enshrined in the Article 356. Now here, President's Rule can be imposed in a state based on Article 356 on two grounds, that is failure of constitutional machinery, or if the state is not running in compliance to what is prescribed in the Constitution. Now let me tell you types of it. First, if the President receives the report from the Governor or on the fact that there is the situation where the state is not running in accordance with the Constitution. Now, if you go through the definition of what this particular thing says, there is this clause of otherwise which becomes controversial. Let me read it out for you. If the President receives a report from the state's governor or otherwise is convinced, who the President is otherwise convinced or satisfied that the state's situation is not in a place where the government cannot be carried on the governance according to the provisions of the Constitution. So the first clause of otherwise becomes the bone of contention, and if you have heard this clearly, the governor will write a report in other situations that the state is not running in accordance with the Constitution. Second, as per the article, President's Rule can be imposed if any state fails to comply with all directions given by the Union to the matters it is empowered to. Right? If the Union gives a direction and state doesn't comply to it, this becomes a situation where the President Rule is imposed. In simple words, President's Rule comes into picture when the state government is suspended and the central government starts to directly administer the state through the office of the governor. Right? It is very simple. This is called a state emergency or constitutional emergency in the state. Now we have to understand that this President's Rule has to be approved by the Parliament. The proclamation of the President's Rule has to be approved by the Parliament within 2 months of its issue. Within 2 months it has to be approved by the Parliament, and this approval should be through simple majority. Just note the difference. If you talk about the national emergency, it takes 1 month. It should be approved in 1 month by special majority. The President's Rule has to be approved in 2 months with a simple majority. Now, the President Rule is initially for the period of 6 months. It runs for a period of 6 months, and it can be extended for a period of 3 years with parliamentary approval every 6 months. So Parliament has to approve it every 6 months, and then it can move on for a period of 3 years. So basically what happens is the central government starts to administer the state government through the governor. The governor takes care of the situation, and most of the times the state legislature is suspended, and the parliament becomes empowered to make laws with regards to what happens in the state. Or when the parliament is not in session, the president passes ordinances for the state administration. Now, if you talk about revocation of the president's rule can be revoked any time after the proclamation has been made by a subsequent proclamation. That is, once a proclamation has been made, the president can say, okay, this is going to be revoked, and it will be revoked. A proclamation of revocation of the president rule does not require an approval by the parliament. So all these things are coming into picture. This is about the president's rule. Now, this judgment of the Andhra Pradesh High Court and the use and the presence of the word otherwise becomes a tough scenario, or a scenario tough to decipher. Going further, we have to understand how this president's rule came into picture. If you talk about Article 356, the author is saying no liberal democratic constitution in the world has such a provision where the central government administers the state government, let's say, by coercion. No liberal democratic constitution in the world has it, but in India we have it, which we have borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. Please remember this, we have borrowed it from the Government of India Act 1935. Now, in 1935, when it is bought in the Government of India Act, the freedom struggle was going on, and the leaders in the freedom struggle opposed it. Right? They have opposed it. They said we don't want it. As a result, when you read it in your syllabus, you will not find the mention of what you call as an emergency provision. But later, in the independent India, when we are making a constitution, it came to be incorporated in our final Indian constitution as a president's rule or state emergency. Of course, it has gone through several revisions for it to become what it is today, but then it still remains a bone of contention. Now, if you talk about Article 370, Article 356, it has been subject to use also, it has been subject to misuse also. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is known as the father of the Indian Constitution, or the chairman of the drafting committee, he said this provision is nothing but a dead letter. He called it a dead letter, and his opinion was completely different than what it is going on today. But today you see, more than genuine breakdown of the constitutional machinery, it is used for political considerations. This is what this author is talking about. Now, it has been used several times through various presidents, through various prime ministers, to make their political wrongs right, but then the whole sanctity of this matter is not preserved. Let me clear this. The Article 356 is quite an important article in the Indian Constitution, though it has its own drawbacks. But what is vague has to be gotten rid of, is what the author, Mr. Faizan Mustafa, is saying, that this word of otherwise, that the president, if otherwise, is convinced. So it can be anything. It can be a political favor, it can be an ideological inclination, or anything. So if this kind of contentious issues are resolved, then it will be a proper way. And he's also talking about judiciary, how judiciary should not become an activist judiciary and rather remain a judicial active place, or it should just practice judicial activism. Now, the Andhra Pradesh High Court's recent order is worrisome. He's saying it opens up possibility of judicial use or misuse of the Article 356. So, hope you have understood this. From this judgment of Andhra Pradesh High Court, the issue of Article 356 becomes important. We have tried to discuss some of it, but you need to keep revising it, and you need to know the details of it so that you can crack any answer, be it prelims or mains. Going further, here we are learning about the labor codes, and this author is talking about this labor codes in the backdrop of the Western case, or the thing that happened in the iPhone assembly factory very close to Narsipura in Karnataka. So the reasons for this violence that happened in the factory, where most things were damaged, things were, they were becoming this, that, and so much debate was going on. The reasons that they have quoted is non-payment of wages. First thing is non-payment of wages. Second, they have said partial payment of wages. They have said delay in providing contract. Okay, these are the basic reasons that they have stated. The employees got very worked up, they got very annoyed, and they resorted to violence. Apart from this, the laborers or the people in the factory have also added that the dilution of labor laws have affected their working conditions very much. They have affected their working conditions very much with regards to working duration, with regards to overtime wages, with regards to the overall working conditions in the factory. And all these things have affected their working conditions, not in a positive way, but in a negative way. And added to this problems, we got frustrated and we resorted to such a thing. Now we see labor codes have come into picture, and Karnataka government has been on a forefront to make sure the changes are made in the right way. And the government has said we are doing this to attract more investment. Right? They're saying that we are doing this to attract more investment, and this is with the ideal fact that our labor laws in the country are so complex, are so big, there are so many. We need something that is more streamlined, that is something more organized and caters to all sectors, not just to the organized sector, but also to the unorganized sector. So general scenario itself is like that, where we have so many labor laws, not just of the central government, but also the state government, that make the overlapping of the laws, and then it is mostly catering to the unorganized sector. We have not made sufficient progress in this regard, but the progress that we have seen in the recent times is the labor codes. Right? We have seen the labor codes that come into picture, but sadly, the scenario of the labor codes has been pretty different, because the labor codes once brought into picture have been severely opposed, not just by laborers themselves, but by labor organizations, political affiliations, experts, analysts. All of them have opposed this labor laws. Now, the fact is that when the labor laws were made, or the labor codes were brought into picture, which are four in number, were not through the ideal of consultation and deliberation. They were just bought with the fact that yes, we were supposed to streamline it. There was no right kind of deliberation, there was no right kind of consultation, which was done to make sure things are sorted in the right regard. Clearing this, we also have understood the fact that most of the times the backup that's been given to the labor laws is it is trying to emulate China, right? With the help of these labor laws, we are trying to emulate China so that we can get good kind of investment, we can get good kind of production, we can get so many things. But the fact of the matter is the scenario in China is entirely different. It's very different from India. They have so many positive things. One positive example I would like to give you that you can make use of in your answers if China has been brought into picture is how factory accommodation is a thing in China, where if a worker is working in your factory, apart from the wages, apart from water facility or toilet facility, you also have to give him or her accommodation in your factory. Now when accommodation is provided by them in their factory, this reduces their issue of what you call as huge standard of living, or payment of their rent, or these kind of things. It all reduces, and also it reduces the problem of urban slums. Now most people cannot afford a house with their earnings, so what happens is it leads to development of slums. So these kind of things are not taken into consideration, but the fact that is prima facie on the face that we have better labor laws, stringent working conditions, we'll have better conditions, that's a wrong thing to do. So if you have tried to emulate China here, the positive things are not taken into consideration, but then this has failed badly. Now what we understand from the data that is present to us with regards to labors, the casual labor in urban India, a casual labor in urban India earns 256 rupees per day, right? 256 rupees per day, and this equals to 4,600 rupees per month. Now, this is well below what was provided for in the 7th pay commission, and this is where the problem has to be fixed. Do the labor codes talk about this? Do the labor codes talk about the wages? Yes, they have spoken about floor wages. They have spoken about floor wages, but then the experts are saying it can be subjected to whims and fancies of the people who are setting it. So this does not consider the fact that it is coming from the poverty point of view. It is not coming from the fact that it's standard of living point of view. So this becomes something tough and something different. Now lastly, we have to end this article by seeing what is the lessons that we have learned from this scenario that has happened in the Western. So we have to understand that we cannot deceive the workers. We cannot deceive the workers because they are the major force behind how our world is running, how our working sector is running. So we cannot deceive the workers. And with regards to how we have had the lockdown, how we have had the pandemic, and most people in the country have lost their jobs, we should not try to capitalize on this opportunity. We should rather go for the humanitarian perspective and provide more and more solutions. Since this is not done, it has, what you say, backfired. It has backfired. It has also dented India's image in the global standards, where seeking investment is a far-fetched dream for us. And of course, our programs like Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat have also been hit back due to this scenario. So a lot of things can be taken away from this article if you look at it from the right way. So yes, please do revise what we have learned and let's go further. Here we are learning about the PM Kisan scheme. Now Prime Minister Modi has released certain amount from the PM Kisan scheme for the Kisan or the families of the Kisans or the farmers. This caters to GS paper 2 as well as prelims. Now PM Kisan scheme or the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, you can say Kisan Samman Nidhi, was started with a perspective or with the aim to support the income of the farmers or support or provide an income support to all land holding farmers families across the country, right, to provide them extra additional income for this land holding families across the country, and it will enable them to take care of their expenses not just with regards to agriculture but also with regards to the allied activities that they undertake. Under this scheme, amount of rupees 6,000 was provided to the will be provided to the farmers per year, and it is transferred in 4 monthly installments of rupees 2,000 directly into their bank accounts. Okay, so this is a scheme. The basic thing, 6,000 rupees will be given to them in 4 monthly installments of rupees 2,000 per month. It will be directly going to their bank account, and they have the certain criteria that they should fall into, and if they don't fall into this, they cannot opt for this PM Kisan scheme. Now the beneficiaries are to be identified by the state government or the union territories. Now who are the people who can fall under this scheme? The scheme initially provides income support to all small and marginal farmers across the country who hold cultivable land up to 2 hectares. Let me repeat that. It covers all small and marginal farmer families in the country who hold cultivable land up to 2 hectares. It will later be expanded to all farmer families in the country irrespective of their land holding. That is later scenarios it will be expanded to. Affluent farmers or rich farmers who are paying income tax and they have been a part of pension schemes or they are group D employees are not covered in this scheme. So these are the various different things that come into picture, and we have to note this from UPSC point of view because this can be an important question in your prelims examination. So this is about the PM Kisan scheme or Kisan Nidhi scheme that has come into picture. Going further, we'll talk about the Chandrayaan II mission with regards to GS paper 3 as well as your prelims examination. Chandrayaan obviously has been launched by ISRO or the Indian Space Research Organization, and this is our second mission to the moon. First mission was Chandrayaan 1. We launched in the year 2008. This was launched recently, and this so Chandrayaan 2 aims to explore the south polar region of the moon. Which region? South polar region of the moon. And this is an important step for India because India is taking many differential feats with the Chandrayaan 2 and its plans for the planetary exploration with the program called as PlanX or PlanX. Apart from this, we have three components of this mission. One is the orbiter, lander and rover. Three parts of this mission: orbiter, lander and rover. Now there are different names for it. The rover is called as Pragyan, right? The rover is called as Pragyan and the lander is called as Vikram. So these two things are something that we should keep into consideration when we are writing our answers as well. Now, what is the fact about the Chandrayaan mission is that this will demonstrate India's ability to soft land. Please note this term, soft land on the lunar surface. and operate a robotic rover on that surface. They will be able to operate robotic rover. Now, what is the point of doing all this? The point is that we will be able to study the lunar topography. We will be able to study the mineralogy of the region. We will be able to study the existence of elements in that region. We will be able to study the exosphere of the region. We will be able to study the presence of hydroxyl or water in the region. So with this, we will be achieving great steps. We will be achieving great feats. Now going further, we will learn the launch vehicle. We learned about the launch vehicle. The launch vehicle is GSLV Mk3. Geo Satellite Launch Vehicle Mk3. Now this is a three-stage vehicle. This is a three-stage vehicle predominantly used to launch communication satellites, not Earth observation. Please don't get confused. Communication satellites into which orbit? Into geostationary orbit. Now this has a mass of 640 tons and accommodate payload up to 8,000 kgs in the lower Earth orbit and 4,000 kgs in the GTO, geosynchronous transfer orbit. Right now, it is powered by this three-stage vehicle is powered by two solid motor strap-ons, one liquid propellant core stage and a cryogenic stage. So three things. One is two solid motor strap-ons, one liquid propellant core stage and another cryogenic stage. So all these things become very important if you learn about GSLV Mk3. This can be asked anytime in your prelims examination. So these are some information that you should have at your fingertips. So you know this is geo stationary orbit. It goes into a geosynchronous transfer orbit, you can say. It is predominantly used for communication satellites, 8,000 kgs in the lower Earth orbit and 4,000 kgs in the geosynchronous transfer orbit. Now, south polar region of the moon is important because there is this area of the moon is predominantly unexplored. It's predominantly unexplored. There is possibility of presence of water, and there are so many things that are not known about this area, and with this we'll be able to achieve it. Another fact from UPSC point of view is that India will become the fourth country to land a spacecraft on the moon. India will become the fourth country to land the spacecraft on the moon. So this is about the Chandrayaan II. Let us go further. Here we are learning about OPEC plus. Now before we go to OPEC plus, please understand this will cater from GS paper 2, that is international relations, and from your prelims point of view also. First we'll learn about what is OPEC. OPEC stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. This is a permanent intergovernmental organization that was created in 1960, and it is currently a very important organization that takes care of the supply of petroleum across the world. Now this was created at what you call as Baghdad Conference, or Baghdad, which is the capital of Iraq. It was created there, and the countries that were responsible for its creation were Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. Now it is headquartered in Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. Now these countries come together to decide the price of the oil, to decide the supply scenario and several other things, and this is very important from the point of view of the fossil fuels or with regards to UPSC exam. Now if you talk about OPEC plus, OPEC is there. Now we have to learn about OPEC plus. Now these countries found out, that is Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela. After this, several countries joined OPEC. Several countries including African nations, Asian nations, European nations, and OPEC is a very, very huge organization. Now, who are these OPEC plus countries? Simply understand, the OPEC plus countries are those countries which are not a part of OPEC. The non-OPEC countries which also indulge in export of crude oil are OPEC plus. Now, there are 14 countries that had a dilly-dally situation, but for now, several countries are there with regards to OPEC plus. Who are these countries? Let us learn their names. Azerbaijan, one. Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, Russia, South Sudan and Sudan. So those countries who export crude oil are usually a part of OPEC, but those countries that don't export crude oil have now become a part of OPEC plus. So this is the reason why OPEC Plus has come into existence. And of course, there have been a little bit of politics being played here by Saudi Arabia, by Russia. All that is not important from UPSC point of view, but just know the difference between OPEC and OPEC Plus. The countries, let me repeat: Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, Russia, South Sudan, and Sudan. So these countries basically are not a part of OPEC, but they are a part of OPEC Plus. Going further, next topic. These are prelims facts. So let's learn from prelims point of view that the names of two helicopters have come into picture, Cheetah and Chetak, right? So if the question is asked, which of the following terms best defines Cheetah and Chetak that are a part of the Indian Army, you can simply mark helicopters. Cheetah and Chetak are very important part of our Indian Army. They are basically helicopters, and there is KA-226T. That helicopters deal has been stuck with Russia, so we'll be getting them soon. Please note about this KA-226T from Russia. Apart from this, Cheetah and Chetak become very important. This picture, another beautiful picture in the Hindu newspaper, which talks about the Satkosia Wildlife Sanctuary in Odisha. So Satkosia Wildlife Sanctuary also happens to be a tiger reserve, and this is located in Odisha. And some facts that we need to know about this is that it was declared a tiger reserve in the year 2007, Satkosia Tiger Reserve in the year 2007. It is located in the Angul district. It is located in the Angul district of Odisha, where the Mahanadi river passes through this range. It is also part of the Mahanadi Elephant Reserve. So it becomes very close to that. It is said that this Satkosia Tiger Reserve is a meeting point of two biogeographic zones, which is the Deccan Peninsula and the Eastern Ghats. Please know this. The Satkosia is a meeting point of Deccan Peninsula and the Eastern Ghats, and there is huge amount of biodiversity present, be it flora or fauna. Of course, flora, you can talk about mixed deciduous forest, you can talk about deciduous forest, and then in fauna you can talk about tigers, crocodiles, elephants, etc., etc. So that's it from today's Daily News Express, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you have liked our video, press the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you have any doubts or discrepancies, don't forget to write to us in the comment section. Until next time, stay safe, take care, bye bye.